Welcome, my name's Mark Thomas with the Smart Cities Council, and today on What's Smart in 2025, we're taking a brief look at some of the AI opportunities for cities, things that are happening today, things that are being considered, and also provide some guidance on how towns and cities in New Zealand should be using AI, what the approach should be. I'm very pleased to be joined by two experienced AI practitioners. Firstly, Luke Herlihy, Associate Business Director, Data and AI, Accenture, and also co-founder of Reveal. Luke, in 30 seconds, what is your role?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So I work very closely with a range of clients across New Zealand, industry agnostic, whether it's the health and public services sector, financial services, resource, etc., to help them identify value cases for AI within their business, help them understand the digital backbone that's required to implement that, help them with considerations around talent and organization and how they build capabilities within their business, and also practices around responsible AI as well.
Thanks, Luke. Maria is the Knowledge and Information Manager, AI and Data at Mott McDonald. She's also an Executive Council member of the AI Forum in New Zealand, part of the NZ Tech ecosystem. Maria, your turn. In 30 seconds, what's your role?
I like to think about my role as simply what I do is I solve problems with AI, with the help of AI and digital technology, big data. And I do that with a particular focus on the built environment, because that's an aspect that touches every single minute or second of our lives, from how you get to work to how your groceries get you your home and so on. So the working group that I founded at the AI Forum of New Zealand focuses on the architecture, engineering and construction industry for that very purpose. Yeah.
Terrific. Look, thanks so much. So today we've got, just in a brief period of time, three big topics we want to explore. And the first is to look at some of the AI activity already underway and what should be prioritized this year. So Luke, to you first, what AI initiatives or projects are you aware of that some New Zealand towns or cities are currently implementing?
I think the private sector is leading the public sector in this space, but like in New Zealand, local governments are increasingly exploring AI to enhance their public services. And like one of the poster childs for me that comes to mind is the Hutt City Council. They're expanding their AI tools over 150 staff members to streamline tasks and improve efficiency there. I think one of the key success factors for that, and one that's common across the councils which are leading the adoption of AI, is their ability to partner with the private sector as well. So where there's good collaboration between the two, those are the councils that are winning from what I'm seeing.
Look, can you just talk a little bit more detail about the approach that Hutt Council is taking in terms of what they're looking to do with the AI work they have underway?
Yeah, they've been following a similar approach to I guess everyone who's dipping their toes into this field, which is a test and learn approach and then scale, right? The AI tools, I believe, piloted a very small number of people first. There was a strong focus on responsible AI practices and privacy and ensuring that they'd tick the boxes on that, and then it was a scale and try to leverage the efficiencies they were seeing from that pilot across the business.
Terrific. And Maria, to you, again, from your perspective, what AI initiatives or projects are you aware of that cities currently are thinking about?
Yes, sure. So I came across a presentation by Alvaro Orsi from the Environmental Science Research Institute. And he was actually presented at the latest Generative AI Summit back in December on a pilot that they put together on a digital twin for the whole of Aotearoa. And he was showing all of these AI simulations that you can actually run at whatever scale that it's appropriate. For example, when it comes to simulating traffic and what's the impact of building a new highway, but also what happens if we don't build that highway and we better use the resources that we currently have or the infrastructure that we currently have. All of those things can open up when you actually couple AI with big data, and in this case, with a national digital model. Equally, another example could be climate resilience. We often build for the peak event, and climate change is showing us that we need to build perhaps even bigger than that, but it's the best use of resources. What can AI actually bring in sort of opportunities to rethink how we design infrastructure? And I think this idea of having a national digital twin coupled with AI is a very powerful one, and one that's starting to perhaps race in New Zealand and across different parts of New Zealand.
Look, that's a great point, and there are digital twin pieces of work underway in Christchurch City Council. They were perhaps the first big council in New Zealand to make progress. Wellington City Council also has a reasonably developed version, and Auckland is contemplating a pilot central city digital twin project. So I think it's a great point to say that the value that AI can have triaging into that. What was the organisation that you were referring to that's involved in that digital twin lead work?
Yeah, so it's the Environmental and Science Research Institute, and the actual pilot is called ALMA. So you can go online, you can go on Google and just type in ALMA, ALMA, and you can see it there. You can even see some of the use cases, applications, and I believe there's a free demo as well that you can try.
And we'll be optimistic that piece of work will survive the transition that the CRIs are going through, because ESR, of course, is one of those CRIs that will be merged into the new organisations, one of which is an Earth place-based CRI. And of course, that's the area where digital twin activity can deliver a lot of value. The other thing, of course, you mentioned is the AI Summit. For anyone who's not aware of that, that's something, of course, I think it's an annual activity that the AI Forum helps lead. It's a really valuable way of people connecting with both use cases and also emerging practice. Look, thanks for that. That's a useful, very introductory session to some of the activity. What I want to do now in our second session is turn to new or developing opportunities for 2025 in cities or towns that you're aware of anywhere. Of course, this can also be organisations that perhaps are developing tools that towns and cities could pick up on. And so, Maria, can we turn to you first in terms of how you see AI potentially reshaping urban planning, infrastructure and service delivery within New Zealand towns and cities over the next few years?
Yes, I often see how we design cities, and I walk, for example, very early morning on Saturdays, and I see the city, like Auckland city centre, completely deserted of people, and I see these big intersections that are designed for peak time, but I see them as a huge waste of materials and land, really valuable land in the city center in this case. And I often wonder, what can we actually do with big data and AI to perhaps take a bit more of advantage of this really valuable space? So I guess one of the opportunities could be to look into the patterns of commuting and traffic, and as opposed to our current state, which is normally just to enlarge the size of the infrastructure and add more lanes. Is there anything else that we could do if we look into the data and if we were to interrogate that data with AI? So just, for example, giving incentives to councils to have people not coming to the office all at the same time, like staggering the commuting, or what else is there that could actually be seen from the data that we have? I think that's probably one use case of, as I was saying before, of a digital twin of a city. Cities like Singapore, for example. Singapore was actually the first one to have a digital twin, and they've been able to use AI to optimize public transport schedule of buses, of trains, and so on. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. And again, I'll go back to this idea that it's probably not just AI alone that it's going to be the part of the solution, but it's also how you couple that with big data initiatives. I think that's key. Yeah.
Look, I think you make a really good point. I was very closely involved with Auckland Council not long after it amalgamated 15 years ago. And I think that there's always a tension between doing new things, shiny things, or perhaps not too shiny in the case of councils, but then the asset management, the actual better utilisation of what the existing spaces are. And councils often struggle actually with the asset kind of management, asset maintenance. And I think the point you make is you could, if not create a new space, you could certainly create quite significant changes to existing spaces by better use of some of the tools that are developing now, particularly the way in which AI can be used. And having a digital twin element could assist with that piece of work too. Maria, thanks. And look, to you, what about from your perspective, do you see AI reshaping urban planning and infrastructure?
I think cities serve their ratepayers, right? They serve their constituents. So any use of AI has got to be grounded in a value case that delivers some benefit to those ratepayers and the constituents of that local government authority. In New Zealand, we have 60 odd territorial authorities. Even Auckland, being the largest, doesn't have the scale of the likes of Singapore or the balance sheet and P&L to invest in AI like Singapore would. So I think the councils have to be pragmatic about it, and across the territorial authorities, there will be common problems, right? Wellington's known for its leaky pipes, and that won't be common to Wellington, as an example. Public transport and traffic in Auckland, Maria, as you alluded to around that, like a common problem there. But I'd love to see the councils collaborate and band together and get some economies of scale so they can solve a problem in one area and then scale that to across the territorial authorities in New Zealand. Like in terms of specific initiatives, I think servicing ratepayers, chatbots that can improve citizen engagement by providing instant responses to queries like, which is, my recycling coming this week or is it next week if it's every other week, things like that. Predictive analytics, like moving beyond like generative AI, but into the more classical AI, machine learning, etc., like assisting in infrastructure maintenance. All of the pressure changes in those water pipes in Wellington, like that data is going somewhere, right? So throwing some smarts are added and using that to solve problems. Forecasting road repairs through visual detection of potholes or delamination or things like that, etc., and throwing AI at that. I think there are a number of use cases that cities could jump on, but they need to band together to get the scale to be able to solve them in a country like New Zealand just because of the size.
Look, I think that's this conversation is a great mix of both bigger opportunities, potentially reimagining, revitalizing spaces that aren't used as optimally, but also more specifically, the likes of the chatbot example is a terrific one, because I think many of us will have seen the developments that AI has led to with the chatbots we inevitably have to engage with, often with the private sector. And it's regularly a frustration, isn't it, with ratepayers about the perception it's difficult to engage with council, difficult to get information easily. And so I think that's a great example of a use case that perhaps is less stretching the boundaries than some of the other things that AI could be used for, but it's more practical approach for delivering a solution. Let's take a wider step to international examples. So look, I'll come to you first with this, but it's just looking at solutions, experiences you become aware of from international cities or other environments that New Zealand councils should learn from or be aware of?
I think just to touch on a few things I've read about internationally, like sticking with the chatbot example, Buenos Aires has successfully implemented AI-powered chatbots, and that's handling now a wide range of citizen services. And there's a clear value case behind it. The efficiencies it's created in terms of the SLAs that they can now deliver around requests and things like that are through the roof. And just creating that kind of capacity in your workforce has like numerous benefits in terms of employee engagement and citizen engagement and things like that and stuff as well. So that's a real powerful one that kind of shows you can take concepts from the private sector into the public sector in this space and really get some value from them. I think the other one, which is a little bit closer to home over in Sydney, AI is being utilised to detect road damage, what I was talking about before with potholes and delamination, and enabling them to proactively maintain and enhance their road safety rather than waiting until it's a problem to then go and solve it. It's a different application that would have been great within Auckland over the last kind of year and a half with all the sinkholes that have been appearing here, to have been able to predict where they were going to appear and have the data and then the means to analyze that data to understand those issues before they happen and disrupt the public and transport routes and all of that, all those good things. Those are two like very publicized, noticeable examples that I've seen globally.
Look, and it's good to refer to Sydney because they, of course, have Transport for New South Wales as the effectively governing authority, as the road transport authority for the state. Sydney has, I think, 30 or 40 mayors or councils. Of course, that's fairly challenging. But the big thing that they have done, of course, for some years now is a technology roadmap where they've sort of sought to articulate both the practice but also the potential as a way of supporting and initiating those sorts of ideas that you've talked about, Luke. Maria, Luke provided some good international examples. Are there more AI examples in New Zealand that our towns and cities could learn from?
Yeah, definitely. There's one that we've been working on for at least the past 10 or so years with Auckland Council, and that is for determining the quality of the water in the shores of Auckland. So you might have heard, or people might have heard about SafeSwim. That is actually all, it has a backend that is all based on machine learning for the hydraulic modeling of the conditions in the water. So We take samples of the chemicals in the water. That data is all transmitted in real time to the cloud service, and then that data is analyzed together with weather data as well. And then instead of using the traditional method, which would have been to just go in, process all of that data into a hydraulic model and then run for hours, if not days, every time that we need to evaluate what the conditions are going to be in the water. Instead of doing that, we use machine learning to estimate and predict what's going to be the water like. And effectively, for the citizens of Auckland, is about using all of that data and information so that they can make an informed choice about whether they can swim or not in the beautiful Auckland shores. Yeah.
Maria, thanks. Look, so that category was really about other examples, both internationally, Buenos Aires, you heard about Singapore, but also more locally with Auckland Council and SafeSwim in terms of the approach that they're taking. Our final topics on more specific referencing of how to use AI if you're approaching that in your town or your city. So just a series of quick questions that we'll canvass, and as I say, there'll be access to more information via contacts if you need that. Look, to you first, what headline advice would you give councils regarding the data infrastructure needed to support effective AI implementation?
Yeah, I think as mentioned earlier, Mark, 60-something odd territorial authorities around New Zealand, with the lack of scale of some of those, I'd hate to see councils go in and go and try to stand up all their own infrastructure to do this, right? So I think there's an economies of scale that can be achieved by councils collaborating together on this. The kind of core components, though, to really leverage the benefits of generative AI is around having a strong digital core. So a modern cloud data platform, modern ingested methods and patterns, and all of the good foundational aspects that come with that, like having good master data management, data quality management, data governance in place, having any number of oversight around things like metadata management and the right systems in place to support that, so that you can actually take advantage of the semantic layers that exist, and Gen AI can then develop the right solutions over the top of that to deliver value for your organization. I think this in and of itself could be a specific topic, but I think the headline is invest in the componentry that's core. Don't go build out your own point solutions, partner and collaborate where possible to drive economies of scale in this space.
Luke, thank you. That's some good advice there. I think we get lots of the headline news focus, of course, on the active use of AI, large language learning models, for example, profile applications like SafeSwim. But I think the sorts of things you're focusing on really are essential for councils grappling with how to approach that end benefit state. Maria, looking then at those councils, perhaps just starting with AI, what do you think are the first steps that they should take to identify what the suitable use cases are and try and align them with the council mission?
So I would definitely recommend having workshops with the people that are on the front lines, with the people that are basically having to spend large amounts of time doing something that they're just not maybe that passionate about, or typically when we feel we're actually not using our cognitive brain, that's processes that we should look to automate, whether it's with generative AI or with the other more traditional methods of. And the other recommendation would be you don't necessarily need to have a complete process that you are looking to automate to effectively replace every single step in that process. But there must be a few of those, perhaps a few tasks within a large process that can be easily automated. So that's where they could start identifying those use cases. I think it's also really important to map out what those myriad of use cases look like in terms of the value that they're actually going to bring to the organizations. For example, how many people are they actually going to positively impact, whether it's people working at the council and also public users of that service, but also be very pragmatic about the effort that you need to put in place to get to put that use case into functioning. And I think once you map that out, whether it's with a matrix, and Gartner has some really beautiful models out there that people may be able to use for reference. Once you have that understanding of the use cases and the value versus how difficult it is to implement them, you can then prioritize and decide where to start. The other thing I would recommend is don't be overwhelmed by the number of models and the number of different generative AI and AI resources that are out there. Perhaps just pick one that ticks the boxes when it comes to the different values of your organization, like security. They're a bit more risk averse, there might be considerations there, but there are so many options that I would say just pick one, start somewhere, but start as soon as you can, because there's an educational factor as well that you want to include in your organization, picking up these skills as quickly as possible.
Maria, thanks. Look, you referenced an issue that I want to look at in a little more detail with Luke, and that's privacy and security. With any technology, these are often issues. They can be overblown or misunderstood. So, Luke, how should councils approach mitigating AI privacy and security risks?
Yeah, again, I don't think there's anything super groundbreaking in this space that councils need to go and do bespokely. There's already policy and guidance and frameworks written in New Zealand for responsible AI adoption and practices. So I would like leveraging central government websites like the Privacy Commission, etc., using the resources that are available on there, adopting those frameworks into your practice, into your kind of everyday practices, and probably importantly, operationalizing them. It's one thing to have a policy, but it's another thing to use it and ensure that business is using it, and really just look at those through a critical eye, understand the risks that are relevant to your business, and really what is non-negotiable in terms of rolling out through the organisation, and what can be good guidance, but not necessarily you need to break the bank in terms of spending hours or dollars on it.
Look, great to reference the wide range of advice I think there is available in New Zealand on responsible AI use. The AI Forum last year produced a really valuable document that kind of talks about this. And just very recently, the New Zealand government, in fact, has published guidelines for government responsible AI use. So these are certainly resources that New Zealand towns and cities could use. Maria, let's turn to an external and internal challenge with getting staff and community buy-in for AI projects. What about areas where there's resistance or fear of automation? How should we deal with that when thinking of those two audiences?
So I think keeping humans in the loop is essential, and talking about tasks being replaced by AI and not jobs. I think also language is really important, because when we talk about tasks from people and we're talking about AI is going to do that, the job, it's much more complex than that. Then I feel people are definitely more receptive to technology and to AI in this case. Obviously, education is a huge component, because if people feel that they can use this technology to improve their lives, improve their work and life balance, give a better service, etc., they'll be enthusiastic about it, and they won't. I'm positive, optimistic myself as well, and I think once you actually get to know the technology and get to use it to your benefit, of course you want more of it, and you want salary opposed. But yeah, education, I think it's a key aspect, and I would recommend again that councils do take that into consideration, educating and upskilling their people, and that it's a continuous process, right? It's not just about sitting on a workshop for 3 days or a course for 3 days, but it's also about giving them tools where they can themselves use generative AI. So whether they choose something like Copilot from Microsoft, if they're more into the data privacy and information security, especially want to ensure that they tick those boxes. But there are so many options out there that they could get started with, that I think it's just about having those tools into the hands of the people, and then pairing that with the right upskilling training programs as well.
Look, let's just draw that a little more further, Luke. Building enthusiasm within staff comes from staff having confidence, and that goes to the skills and capabilities they need to have. How do councils approach developing skills and capabilities, recruiting, contracting, training to ensure more successful AI project delivery?
Yeah, the resources that are out there today that are available for upskilling or training in this area are numerous indeed. I think in terms of creating that enthusiasm and that confidence so that they can use them in their day-to-day jobs is great. I think that the other kind of thing that helps promote that as well with employees is having a clear value proposition. Like, how does this tangibly better my day-to-day or improve things for our ratepayers and the people that we work for, etc. I think having that purpose behind it and truly understanding the value that something like AI can deliver also helps with there. I also reflect back and hark back to comments made early. Like, I'd hate to see for councils to go on a hiring spree and filling out the IT departments full of people with these new skill sets and capabilities. I think businesses who are succeeding in this area in the private sector doing so from partnering. It's all about partnering and collaboration these days, like understanding what your core business is, understanding the problems that things like Gen AI can solve, and having maybe your responsible AI policies and implementation of that in-house. But then technical wise, partnering to bring those capabilities and actually apply it to the problems that are going to deliver value for your organization, I think is crucial. Yeah, guidance would be look to partner and upskill where you can, as opposed to going on a hiring spree and building out kind of new departments or capabilities with your organization in this area.
And look, you referenced that example at the top of this session that Lower Hutt was doing, really just building confidence across organisations. So taking something like chat, like a large language tool, whatever the tool is that the council might be using, and involving larger numbers of people within the organisation as a way of both gaining confidence and skills. It's, I think, another example of the capability building that they can be doing. Last question, Maria, to you. With all of the challenges of the problems we want AI to help with, there's always the future-proof challenge. What aspect of the technology should I be investing in? How can councils future-proof their AI strategies to remain as adaptable and relevant as the technology inevitably evolves?
Yeah, so just maybe also going back to one of the points that Luke just made, definitely to remain agile and to remain flexible, partner is a great option. So rather than perhaps investing into building something from scratch, I think these days I see it often that people almost take it as a hobby to perhaps build their own LLM, their own chat. And there might be areas in your organization where that's actually crucial to do because it results in very niche specific problem that no one else can, or maybe for IP reasons, you don't want anyone else to touch that data or that information. But for most other aspects where you can use AI, especially in councils, when it comes to operations, there is going to be a lot of other organizations, a lot of other tech partners that may already have something available to you. And why would you spend time and resources building something bespoke when you can just reuse something that is readily available in the market? And then you can focus your resources into the adoption of that tool across the organization. This is going to give you, I think, a little bit of better balance between where innovating and doing so in a way in which it's not putting you at risk of just building something that's going to be obsolete in the next X number of months. I think we used to say years, but the reality these days is that it's probably just going to be replaced by something newer in a few months. Yeah, I think just having that ability again to map out and to understand where you actually want to buy versus where you want to build, and then in between partner. That's probably a more pragmatic approach. Yeah,
I think that's so vital and a great way to finish. Transport technology, where we work, what I've seen too often is transport technology providers not lean into the change because they're wary of the potential adaptation, and obviously transport infrastructure is a significant investment. But I think your point is the rate of change is so great now, we've got no option to. And in fact, the way to best cope with this future change cycle we're in is to lean into it, to adopt that as your mindset, and to have that as the way that you then curate and manage your way through this evolving thing, rather than perhaps sitting and waiting for the answer to be revealed and for the technology to become stable. Hey, look, thank you both for your time today. I wanted to use this short session to do three big things, to look at some of the current AI initiatives underway. And so we talked about the trial work that Lower Hutt has been doing to streamline AI tools across their council. We mentioned the SafeSwim machine learning activity Auckland Council has been doing. Both of those I think you could look at online for more information. We also talked about the ALMA pilot, ALMA. That's the pilot ESR, the CRI is running. There's a huge amount of resources available online for that. That can be used for things like climate resilience, as we said. In developing opportunities, we talked about, of course, the potential that digital twin has to optimize public transport, and reference certainly Singapore is probably one of the leading cities in the world that's done that. But I think the point we also talked about with developing opportunities is the one that Luke made repeatedly, is most of our councils are too small to really contemplate significant change just from a cost investment basis. And so banding together, using the resources that ALGM, the Association of Local Government Information Management, can provide, and of course the expertise that exists in the public and private sector to band together. So if you're contemplating perhaps a chatbot, I don't know that we need 65 different chatbots across the councils in New Zealand. There might be a common platform that could be more usefully established. And then lastly, we ran through just the series of potential issues: privacy, security, engagement, capability building that you should be thinking of. So look, I think it's been a busy session, but I think a useful one. Thank you both so much for your time. Contact information will be available at the end of this. Have a great week, everybody. Stay well and stay smart. Thank you.